Ladies and gentlemen, today I have the pleasure to welcome Professor Margarita Saona. She's a professor at University of Illinois, Chicago, and if I'm not mistaken, head of the Spanish and Italian department.
Not
Uh,
anymore. So I
mm,
did my, yeah, I did my time. Now it's another person
okay,
with that church. Yeah.
okay, so I'm taken out of that.
Yes.
So today, in any way, I have the pleasure to welcome her under the human right tree, and we're going to talk about her country of origin, which is Peru. Professor Saona, thank you very much for joining me under the human right tree.
Well, thanks so much for inviting me.
It's my pleasure, and I look forward to having a conversation about Peru. And my first question will be, can you tell us about Peru before the Spanish came?
Well, yeah. So we had ancient civilizations in Peru.
Mm,
You probably have heard about the Incas and Machu Picchu.
mm,
But there were other civilizations before the Incas, right? The Inca were an empire
mm,
who kind of spread through a large part of South America and conquered these other places that were kind of subjugated to the Inca power. Before that, we had many other cultures that developed along the territory that we now know as Peru. So we had Chavin civilization, Paracas, Mochica, and kind of all these peoples had really kind of elaborated cultures. So in school, children in Peru learn about all this, and that is normally not really known outside of Peru.
I see. But you cited different cultures and different ethnies, but it happened that the Incas are the more known.
Mhm.
Why? Mm,
As I said, because the Incas were an empire,
okay.
and so they advanced over the whole territory, kind of military and culturally.
Mm,
In many cases, assimilating other cultures. In some cases, well, these were kind of also temporal things, you know. Sometimes there are kind of empires that die out, right? And that there are kind of because there are other forces
mm,
that are pressure kind of culturally, and but by the Inca time, they actually were kind of advancing through the territory and having kind of posts everywhere, and in many cases, kind of trying to assimilate these other cultures.
mm,
Uh, and and actually, one of the things that happens when the Spanish arrive in the northern part of what is Peru today is that the empire itself had fractures. And so it was kind of not one unified people really, but they were, you know, problems of succession, problems of this issue of cultures that had been oppressed by the Incas and that didn't necessarily feel kind of loyalty towards them, right?
I think you mentioned the Spanish. When did the Spanish arrive in Peru, and who led that arrival?
Yeah, so Francisco Pizarro is one of the main invaders or conquerors, right?
Mm,
And I forget the exact date that they arrived, but it was the beginning of the 16th century, right? So
mm,
Columbus arrives in what we now know as as the Dominican Republic and Haiti, the Hispaniola island, in 1492. And by 1512, they had already kind of created a center of the Spanish control in Lima, which is now the capital of Peru, right?
Mm.
So we see that it's just kind of an issue of 20 years of that spreading from the Spaniards from the Caribbean towards South America.
I see. As you indicated, there were empires, a well-organized empire before the Spanish came. However, the Spanish were able um, to dominate
Mhm.
the region. What are the strategies they use to implement themselves and be able to overcome any resistance from local tribes? Mm.
Yeah, well, I'm not really an historian.
Mm.
My area is literature.
Okay.
But so they had firearms, right?
Mm.
That the Inca didn't have, and I think that also kind of the fracturing of this supposed empire was already happening.
Mm.
So there is a really interesting novel. I'm a literature person.
Yeah.
Um, so there is this novel. It has not been translated into English yet.
Mm.
It's El Espía del Inca, and
Okay.
it's fiction, but it's the Inca's spy,
Okay.
and it kind of fictionalizes this idea that the author is Rafael Dumet, and it fictionalizes this idea that not everybody around the Inca supported him. And at that point, he had not been really a leader that was necessarily respected and admired,
Mm.
like perhaps some figures, some military figures of the past. Um, and and so in that novel, it's a fiction, but kind of it presents kind of this idea.
I see. Um, we know that Spain colonized Peru for many, many years. However, Peru fought for independence. Would you mind tell us a little bit about the independence era? What
Mhm.
triggered Peruvian to decide that they wanted to be independent?
Yes, that is also very, very complicated. Because what we had at the beginning of the 19th century still was the viceroyalty of Spain in Peru, and it was a very divided and a very segregated society.
Mm.
The elites were all of European descent,
Okay.
and but within this hierarchy, even the people of European descent who had been born in the Americas did not have all the privileges that the Spaniards had,
Mm.
so that their parents had, right?
Yes.
And so, kind of, that was the political class that kind of pressured part of this. Of course, there were also indigenous insurrections,
Mm.
like Tupac Amaru, for example, is an indigenous leader who fought against the corruption of the government imposed by Spain. So there were several indigenous rebellions, but a lot of what we see is also um, kind of promoted by this elite class. So it's complicated.
Mm.
And as I said, I'm not an historian, right? So
Yeah.
uh,
Mm.
what I tell you is just kind of the general knowledge I have as kind of a
Yeah.
Peruvian.
I
Um,
did have the opportunity to read a little bit about Simon Bolivar
mhm,
and also about the Argentinian um, father of independence. And I have the impression there was part of liberating Peru. Was it the case, or
Yeah,
Peru
yeah, no,
have the?
so that is kind of very famously the idea that José de San Martín
Mm,
was the leader of the troops coming from the south, and
okay.
Bolívar was coming from the north, right?
Mm,
And they were kind of these two
armies. Mm,
kind of important leaders that were bringing all these armies in the independentist
mm,
armies. And José de San Martín was the one who declared independence.
okay.
But of course, a declaration of independence doesn't mean that the war is
Over.
totally over, right?
Mm,
So uh, it's been 200 years, and it was celebrated in 2021. The independence in Peru was declared in 1821, right?
mm,
And and so there's a lot of recent material that has been researching this time in
okay.
Peruvian history.
So when did Peru became the country it is today, as far as geographically,
Mm,
politically, and as a nation? You know,
mm,
because I feel like with Simon Bolivar, he had the intention to create the United Nation of Latin America, but he
mhm.
didn't succeed, and Peru became a nation. When Peru emerged as it is today.
Well, the 19th century. So, but it is. Um, I think I keep saying this.
Mm,
It's a very complicated history, right?
mm,
There were all the nations trying to establish themselves as nations, and the concept of the nation itself is complicated, is abstract, is right.
mm,
What defines a nation, and and we see the nation connected to the state and the government and the territory, right?
yes. Mm,
However, I don't know if you're familiar with this book by the historian Benedict Anderson. It's called Imagine Communities. And what he says is precisely kind of with the development of the printing press is when people starts kind of having this idea that they belong to a community, right?
mm,
The problem is that the population was very diverse in Peru. There was a lot of segregation, racism, still oppression of indigenous people, oppression of Afro descendants who had been enslaved,
mm,
uh, and and kind of all these still permeated Peruvian society and continues to this day to a certain extent.
mm,
Um, and Another important thing that happened was at the end of the 19th century, a war between Chile, Bolivia, and Peru. So where Chile ended up controlling some of the territory that had been Peruvian. So
okay.
geographically, the map of what today we call Peru was established at the end of the 19th century.
I see. If I'm not mistaken, you were born in Peru and precisely in Lima.
Mhm.
Can you tell us a little bit growing up in Lima? How was it? Mm,
Yeah, so um, I was born in 1965,
mm,
and shortly thereafter, we had a military dictatorship that was socialist and nationalist. And so it was a very interesting time growing up because, on the one hand, we had this authoritarian regime. On the other hand, um, the this regime was trying to create reforms, like an educational reform. Especially, the most important thing was an agrarian reform, because one of the things that happened in Latin America, as I said, after the independence movements, a lot of the control economically and politically was in hands of descendants of European people, right? And they also controlled the territory. Also, they had um, they own all the natural resources. Like
mm,
they had these um, the lands where they started kind of cultivating things like cotton, for example, sugar, and exported these resources. And then also the guano that started to be extracted from the islands, and kind of bird excrement that was used as a fertilizer, right, during the 19th century.
mm,
And there were kind of uh, British involvement in the exploitation of this. So by the 60s, one of the ideas of this uh, government, it was General Velasco, was to try to reform, have a land reform, and kind of limit the possession of land, and so that the people who work the land would have uh, access to property of the land too, right?
mm,
And to have cooperatives and kind of community. But there were many factors why those projects often failed. So kind of growing up, there was kind of this government, then we had another military government that was more right wing oriented. And uh, when I turned 15 in 1980, there was a return to democracy, but at the same time, there was this group, the Shining Path, claiming to start a revolution. The problem with the Shining Path was that they were attacking the same people that they were supposed to represent.
mm,
However, the response from the government was brutal, and they uh, kind of killed tens of thousands of people. So both the Shining Path and the government created this sort of internal war. And there were over 60,000 people dead as a result of this. Uh, and so, in the meantime, this is kind of the story of what was happening in my country when I was growing up.
mm,
I came from a middle class family, uh, and kind of I had certain privileges just for belonging to the social class that I belonged to, but um, but I could kind of see all these things that were happening around me. And by the time I went to college, um, it was a very confusing time,
okay.
because, sorry,
No,
yeah, because the if you had some ideas of that there was injustice in the country, and that injustice needed to be um, resisted, um, you could not agree with the people uh, who claimed to be doing that work,
yeah.
which was the Shining Path, that created this big destruction. And on the other hand, um, the government was also killing their own people.
Mm,
So it's strange. At the same time, I, as I said, I was able to go to a good school. I lived in a neighborhood very close to the ocean, so I grew up going to the beach, kind of at the and having this kind of um, Pacific landscape as part of my imaginary, and something that I still miss from Peru.
So, as you indicated, the Peruvian nation is very diverse. When you come to Lima, we often don't choose the family we were born in. We just born in that family and we embrace the reality. Did
Mhm.
you always see yourself as a descendant of a Spanish, or you see yourself as a mix, or you feel yourself as indigenous? Which part of the society you see yourself in? Mm,
Yeah, so since I have light skin,
mm,
in Peru, I'm automatically classified as white.
okay.
However, I do have indigenous ancestry.
Mm,
It is not clear like at what moment of in my um, predecessors.
mm,
Um, um, I don't really know much about my forefathers or foreparents.
okay.
Um, uh, um, One of my grandmothers is from Spain. Um, my grandfather was born in Cusco, and which is was kind of considered the center of the Inca Empire, right? With strong indigenous population. And so I have done the ancestry test. I
Mm,
have 15% of indigenous blood in me.
okay.
But kind of that is not recognized. And always kind of my my parents tried to um, acknowledge that we had some indigenous blood in us,
Mm,
but but at the same time, the segregation is such that you are uh, kind of immediately um, understood as one thing or the other, right?
yeah.
There is a very interesting paper by a sociologist that says that when two Peruvians find each other, they are always kind of trying to assess who is more white,
Mm,
which kind of is a terrible thing to say, right?
yeah.
And that according to him, we all do this uh, um, without thinking about it, right?
Mm,
So, and this is one of the reasons why I left Peru because I I couldn't see myself as part of the society,
mm,
um, and kind of wanted to reject that. And I left when I was 25. Um, and at this time with the political turmoil, is that I didn't see either a way in which I could be part of any change.
I see. Um, when we take, for instance, the city of Chicago, we know there is the downtown area, and yeah, there are also the suburb. There is the south and the west side. Would you mind describe us a little bit Lima for the people who don't know,
Mhm.
and where people live based on their status and all of that?
Mhm. Yeah, so um, I grew up in a neighborhood called Miraflores, that is kind of right by the coast. And there were during the first decades of the 20th century, there was a lot of migration from the Andes to Lima, right?
Mm,
Um, and so the city, like many centers, kind of exploded in terms of populations. And there were, it's interesting for me that in the United States, the suburbs were created a little bit by kind of white flight, right? Um, that saw the cities as dangerous or and wanted more kind of safer places. And so the suburbs in the States are understood as more affluent.
Mm.
And in Latin America in general, we understand the suburbs of the places that kind of surround the cities, um, and kind of trying to get access to what the city has to offer. But a lot of time is the least privileged people who live in the
Yes.
suburbs, right?
Mm.
So, but also I think during my lifetime at kind of the end of the 20th century, the I think that the very rich people had kind of enclaves uh, that that are not in what were these kind of traditional, more middle class neighborhoods that I associate with Miraflores, Barranco, that are kind of the touristy sites right now are there, and in downtown, that's called Centro de Lima, where the historical buildings are. Uh, and so that's a world that I don't have access to either. So I don't
Mm.
know where or how these people live. I know
Yeah.
that they exist.
So did you have interactions?
Mm.
Or if you belong to a class in the city, you are basically framed, and, or there was interaction between the different classes. How was it? Mm.
Yeah. So um, I think that things have changed
Yeah. Mm.
in the sense that a lot more people of indigenous descent have access to seats in government and kind of representation in other ways.
Mm.
Racism persists, right? When I was growing up, um, you didn't see people with dark skin in the government or in industries, like or leaders of industry, right?
Mm.
So there was, and then there is this kind of cognitive dissonance that I think happens in other Latin American countries with strong indigenous populations. That you see the commercials in televisions or the telenovelas, and everybody looks white, right? While that's not how the people in the street look.
Mm.
Um, yeah. So,
Yeah. So, do you, when you were going to school, did you have to pay for school, or it was school was free? What was the case?
there was free school, but I did go to a private school,
Mm.
a religious Catholic private school,
Okay.
for elementary and secondary education.
Mm.
And then for higher education, I also went to a private university.
Okay.
But there is free education, and there are good state universities which
Mm.
are free or almost free. Kind of the tuition is nominal, right? So there is access to higher education in ways that there's not in the United States.
I see. How was the healthcare situation? There is there a free healthcare system, or no? Everything is a private.
Yeah, there is a free healthcare system, but it's very poor, right?
Okay. Mm.
And there are also kind of the social security hospital,
Mm.
uh, and I don't know exactly if it's kind of completely free. When I was growing up, people didn't normally have health insurance. Just people either go to the public hospital or they paid for a private hospital out of pocket. Now it's more frequent that people have have insurance, and there are really good hospitals. There's a really good cancer center, for example, and a lot of people kind of buy a specific insurance that would allow them to go to that hospital in case they get cancer.
I see. Growing up in Lima, as a young teenager, can you really cite few books that really affected you, and were able to describe Lima as a city, and its reality, or talk about Peru that people can read just to know more about your country and your city?
Yeah, so Mario Vargas Llosa's books are he was a Nobel Prize winner, and the he published until basically couple of years before he died
Mm,
at a very advanced age. But I really like his first novels, and especially I like the time of the I think the title in English is The Time of the Hero. In Spanish, it is called La Ciudad y los Perros, um, and in which he does something really interesting because he describes this military school as a place where people from all over Peru were educated together,
mm,
and where you could see people from different social classes and and different ethnicities. And and so that novel, I think, is really interesting. And another novel is Conversation in the Cathedral, also by Vargas Llosa. And something that those two novels have to do with corruption. In the school, we see the school kind of hiding a scandal, and the people who try to do justice get punished. And something similar happens at a larger scale in Conversation in the Cathedral. That is more kind of about Lima, but another very important author is José María Arguedas, and out of his novels, he is considered an indigenista author, like somebody who wrote about indigenous people. And he was of mixed heritage, but he was raised inside indigenous communities because his father was a lawyer, but he was traveling, so he was raised really by indigenous people. Uh, and and a novel that I love is called Deep Rivers, where we see a teenage boy who observes what happens, and it happens in the city, starts in the city of Cusco, and then he goes to, I think, Abancay, and kind of he witnesses and the all the issues that have to do with racism and injustice from this kind of innocent perspective. And at the same time, he presents Andean culture with a lot of love for it, right?
I see.
And it's very interesting. So often the book includes kind of a list of terms because he includes a lot of Quechua terms, which is the native language of the Andes, of that region of the Andes. uh, and and describes some practices. Jose Maria Arguedas was also an anthropologist, so parts of his books also sometimes read like a description of the culture too.
I see. Eventually, you decided you going to leave Peru, and if I'm not mistaken, you came to the United States. Um, when did you decide? When did you decide that you're going to leave? Why? And why you choose the United States of America as a place to come?
So I wanted to leave because I didn't see a future for me in Peru. On the one hand, in terms of work,
Mm,
I studied literature, and I didn't see myself in kind of more traditional professions, perhaps.
mm,
Um, and I also felt alienated by things with like the racism, classism, and sexism that I observed in my society, and and also at the same time the violence of the Shining Path and the Peruvian armed forces that had started in Ayacucho, this town in the Andes, was kind of moving and getting closer to Lima every time.
mm,
And the it's not that I felt myself in danger. I actually feel myself more in danger with what is happening with politics here right now.
mm,
But there was this tension and in the air that didn't allow me to see a future, right? So I wanted to go somewhere and study beyond my bachelor's degree.
mm,
And I actually applied to other places like Cuba and Brazil and Spain. Um, and my boyfriend at the time convinced me that there were opportunities in the States because the uh, since they needed people to teach Spanish, the
mm.
universities often will give you teaching assistantships with financial aid.
I see.
And so that was kind of what the way
Mm.
I ended up uh, in New York. I went to study there, and I had this position as a teaching assistantship that allowed me to get my PhD, and then I got this job in Chicago.
When did you arrive in New York, and how was life? You know, somebody who come from Lima and landed in New York City. Was it something you expected, or did you have the chance to visit before, or was it the first time you arrived in the
Yeah, no,
United
I
States?
had come as a young girl to the States. My two of my mother's brothers had emigrated in the one in the late 50s and the other one in the 60s.
Mm,
So I had gone to see them once when I was 7 years old. Um, but I had never been in New York.
mm,
Uh, and 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 I was a little bit scared. I didn't know what to expect.
mm,
But I loved it, and I the interesting thing, I was very protected in New York. I felt really um, kind of more relaxed and free that I had been
in
in
Peru.
Lima to a certain extent.
Okay.
Um, and I was I so again I landed in this very privileged position because I was protected by the university, right? I lived in university housing,
Mm,
um, and I loved the diversity I found in New York, and the there were a lot of Spanish speakers,
mm,
a lot of Peruvians. My classmates in the PhD program, all of them spoke Spanish perfectly,
mm,
even the ones who were American and had been born and raised here. Uh, so there were things that were difficult. I felt that my level of English was not good. I couldn't kind of I was afraid of participating in class. I had to kind of formulate the sentences in my head before speaking up.
Yeah.
But um, I really enjoyed the access I had to books was kind of unprecedented for me. In when I went to Peru, things have changed in Peru, and the university has modernized a lot too.
Mm.
But when I was growing up, and when I went to university, we could borrow one book from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. 8 a.m. the next morning,
Mm.
just one book at a time.
Oh, wow.
And so you could read them there, or and we were expected to write a BA thesis. So my professor lent me her books because it was really hard to have access to
The
things.
books. Yeah.
So to be able to just like walk through the stacks of the university library was kind of paradise, right?
Yeah.
So so in that sense, um, I there were many things that I loved about living in New York.
Yeah. Many immigrants emphasize a similar situation because here libraries are free,
Yeah,
and in many countries they don't have that luxury to have
yeah,
free library to pick up books, things. And I did volunteering with few refugees organization, and whenever I encounter new refugees, I say, let's go to the library. You get your library card.
yeah,
Even though sometimes they are not inclined on reading, but they can have free videos and
yeah,
movies and things. So I think this is it's like um, it's a huge source of information, having a free library, and I is one of the things I admire about this country. The fact
yeah.
you can have a free library card.
Yeah, another thing that was uh, and things have changed, as I said, in Peru.
Mm,
But um, at the time that I left in 91,
mm,
there were not a lot of public areas where you could parks. If there were public parks, there were completely destroyed. They were not well kept. There was no green in them.
mm.
If there were kind of structures for kids to play, they were all broken. Nothing worked. And so to something that I really relished here was the all these public services, right? That you could just enjoy
I,
because you are part of the city or you're part of your community. Right?
I see. Where did you go to school? And how was your experience going to that school?
I went to Columbia University,
Mm,
and um, I it was very challenging for me. Just kind of the language, the style of um, in graduate school was kind of just different from what I was used to. In Peru, classes will meet 2 or 3 times a week, um, and and here it was just kind of 2 hours once a week, and a whole lot of reading, right? And a lot of the reading was in English, so I had to kind of adjust to that.
mm,
Um, but I really liked it. The my first one of the and I was a teaching assistant, so I started teaching like my second week in New York, and that was also
mm,
challenging. I had never taught Spanish as a second language. I had taught
mm,
other things,
Mm,
So I was taking a class about how to teach languages, as how to teach languages as a second language, right?
mm,
And so all that was challenging. The but I really remember the first cohort of students that I had because it was an evening class, and these were adults. These were people who were returning
school.
to to school, and they were kind of paying for their own schooling. So these were very. It was a diverse and dedicated group, right?
Yeah.
Other groups that I had were, not like that. So,
I see.
yeah,
Yeah, there is a group they who that know why they are coming back to school. There is the other that are trying to figure out.
yeah,
They, you know.
exactly.
So
Yeah.
how was life outside the campus? How was the Peruvian community in New York? And if you
Mhm.
wanted to meet up with them, where do you go? Mm,
Mm. Well, there was a big group of Peruvian people in Queens,
okay.
um, and but actually there were kind of some, and also in Patterson, New Jersey. For some
Okay.
reason, there is a big colony of Peruvians in Patterson, New Jersey.
Mm.
So, but I was I worked a lot in just
No, a
my
lot of
studies
time.
and didn't, yeah. So I would kind of go to one thing or the other. Like there was in October, there is a religious festival that is called the Lord of Miracles, El Señor de los Milagros.
Mm.
And so there is a group of dedicated people um, to who kind of organize and have these processions, and they end up um, in St. Patrick Cathedral, right?
Mm.
And so it's really interesting to see all of a sudden all these Peruvians in Fifth Avenue
I see.
dressed in purple, and there are people selling traditional Peruvian food. So
Mm.
that's kind of a lot of fun. But the people that I knew were people connected, Peruvians connected to the university, most of them, or who had been alumni or who went to the other schools in the city.
I see. Eventually, you graduated from school. What was your major?
It was Latin American literature.
Mm. Did
So my
you,
PhD is in Latin American literature.
after graduation, did you stay in New York or you went somewhere else?
No, I started up. So I originally wanted to return to Peru,
Mm.
but at the time I graduated, I still saw no job possibilities. Although a lot of people who left Peru at the same time that I did return and
Mm.
found positions, right? And at times I've been kind of envious of them because I see that they have a community and have developed, university programs, etc. But I couldn't envision that when I graduated. And so I applied for positions throughout the United States. By that time, my husband had gotten the green card lottery,
Mm.
and so we had become residents.
Mm.
So I applied for positions, got the position here in Chicago at UIC, and here's where I have been ever since.
How was the transition from New York to Chicago? Was it a smooth transition or was it kind of different? What is your perspective on that?
It was very hard at the beginning.
Mhm.
It was very, very hard. I didn't drive. I had a 5-month-old baby. I
Mm.
moved my baby was born in August, so I asked my job. So the academic year starts in August, but I asked to start in the spring. So I arrived in January in Chicago in the middle of a snowstorm. My husband then had broken his foot like a week before the move.
Oh God.
I had to take two trains um, to go to work. My baby was still nursing, so it was really, really hard.
Mm,
I also felt at the time Chicago felt a lot more segregated to me, for
mm,
me, than I felt New York was.
I see.
And I don't know if that perception is true. And now I think the city has changed in these last 27 years.
Mm,
Um, or is if it's that I know the city more better, right? I currently live in Rogers Park, which is a neighborhood that I love, and it's very diverse. Um, so we have people who have lived here their whole lives, and we have new immigrants, and we have Mexican community. We have people. We have a couple of African churches and markets. So uh, it's a place that I really like, and I really feel at home now in Rogers Park.
I see. If somebody really wanna try a good Peruvian food, where somebody should go or how, what is the national dish? Because in Senegal, for instance, the chebujan is the national dish. Everybody know. And when we
Mm.
talk about Peru, what are the national dishes? And if somebody wanna go somewhere here, where the person should go?
Well, the national dish I think is ceviche,
Okay.
which is fish that is marinated with lime
Mm,
and onions. And so there is also Mexican ceviche and ceviche from other parts in Latin America.
mm.
Peruvians are very nationalistic about their food.
Okay.
They they claim that their food is the best in the world. So,
Okay.
but and there are other. It's really varied. So the spices it's spicy and one of my favorite dishes is ají de gallina, which is kind of a chicken stew that has a lot of um, what is that? What is that golden spice that everybody kind of all the health food is very trendy right now?
Mm.
Um, uh, it's yellow. Uh,
Okay.
uh, what is it called? Uh, well, in Peru we call it palillo, and in
Okay.
other parts it's called curcuma,
Mm.
um, and and it has kind of different also peppers, hot peppers in
I
it.
see.
Um, and there are several good Peruvian restaurants now, and the one that is closest to me in my neighborhood and that I like a lot is Taste of Peru in
Taste of
Clark
Peru.
Avenue,
Okay. Mm.
and it's BYOB, so it's that's a
Mm.
good thing too.
I see. Did you have the chance to go back to Peru? And if is the case, when was it? And how? What are the changes you notice after many years in United States and going back to Peru?
Well, I've been going periodically, mainly to for work and to visit my mother. So part of my research has to do with Peru, and particularly I my second book had to do with art and memory of social trauma.
Mm.
And I had so for a while after I left Peru, I couldn't really think of what to say about the things that had happened in my country. Eventually, when there was a Truth and Reconciliation Commission in the year 2000, and they had a report, and there were kind of many people started to memorialize what had happened. was able to see things from a different perspective, see how um, I had been a part of that too. And so related to that research, I also kind of traveled periodically to Peru. And things started changing very rapidly in the 90s as an effect of globalization and neoliberalism. I felt that the economic gap grew even wider. There were um, people who were super rich and many people in poverty, right?
mm,
And I and something that and that is something. So some things became more modern. Kind of my alma mater in Peru, which is a Catholic university. Um, it was a private university, but it wasn't fancy, right?
mm.
Now it's fancy.
I see.
And it has all the things that I wish a university has, like subscription to journals and good libraries, and people can borrow the books from the libraries and all these things. But at the same time, there is a little bit of more kind of, selling these products with the logo and kind of, I don't know, it's just kind of feels a little bit different
Yeah.
than it used to.
In like more sustained, what are the positive changes you notice, and what are also the challenges you think
Mm.
the country still struggling with?
Mm. Well, like I told you before the interview started,
Mm,
there's a lot of political unrest. There's a lot of corruption.
mm,
I think Peru has changed 8 presidents in 8 years, a lot of them being deposed for criminal offenses. Um, Two of them, the latest one was ousted a week ago.
yeah,
Uh, and and um, and it's really difficult. There was a protest because the new person who is in the presidency right now has also accusations of corruption and even of sexual misconduct.
mm,
Um, and so the problem, and one person posted this on Facebook that I thought is something that we need to reflect about, that the what what young people are demanding is basically out with a lot of you, right? There's no trust in anybody in the government.
I see.
Fuera todos.
Mm.
Um,
So basically, you
but
have the impression there is a system that is quite the same. Is only the people are not changing, but the system is still there. Um, is it the impression the young generation have?
yeah,
Okay. Mm,
yeah. So there's a lot of disenchantment, a
mm,
lot of rage. And I I do hope that I don't know that an alternative uh, comes, but I really don't see where it would come from right now.
I see. As a Peruvian, what differentiate you from people from Argentina or Mexico and things? Because many
Hmm.
have the conception, or they are all from Latin America, but you are a nation for a reason. So, what
Yeah.
made the Peruvian different from other countries in Latin America?
Well, the Andes for once. So Argentina has a part of the Andes,
Mm,
but the Andean culture is a lot more prevalent in Peru, even in the coast. I grew up in the coast, but my my father was my grandfather was from the Andes, um, and So I think that that is one of the things that differentiate us. Argentina had a lot more European um, uh, immigration, and so for a long time there has been this image as Argentina like the more European of the South
Yes.
American countries. I
Mm.
think that that is changing.
Okay.
And of course, and like many countries, like my own country, there's a lot of centralism, right? So the people from Buenos Aires are different from the people in Tucumán,
Mm.
which has more Andean presence, right? Uh, and 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 also kind of in Mexico, the kind of the history, the they had to contend with the United States. They were also under France rule for a while. There were kind of some things that have influenced Mexican history differently. The indigenous people of Mexico, Mayas and Aztecs and other groups also uh, you know continue living, and it's the same like in Peru, and we have indigenous ancestry, but that's a little bit different, right?
Mm.
So I think that there are many things that unite us,
Yeah.
from the language, the love of soccer, you know,
Yeah.
and but also there are kind of um, differences. It's a big continent after all.
I see. When mm, the name Peru is mentioned as a country, often Machu Picchu come to to the picture. Beside Machu Picchu, if somebody wanted to ask you for advice, where to go in Peru to better understand the country, what other locations and you will share, you will recommend?
Mm. Um, well, there are several kind of touristic attractions, right?
Mm.
From for people who got kind of like adventure things. There's hiking, there are kind of all these white water rafts, and there are well historical things in many areas outside of Cusco, because Machu Picchu is close to Cusco.
Okay.
I love the city of Cusco itself.
Mm.
Um, and my grandfather was from a valley just outside of Cusco. It's called the Sacred Valley, which is beautiful. The city of Arequipa is beautiful. It has uh, a very famous colonial era convent with just amazing architecture and colors, and the weather is beautiful there. The food is really good. They had some volcanoes. They have the Colca Canyon, which is this big canyon where you can see condors flying. There is the Amazon,
Mm.
um, and so I think that there are so many things that to explore. There is in central Peru what is called the white Cordillera Blanca, so the white mountains where you can see snow. And there are a lot of just really beautiful lakes in that area, where you feel that you're very close to the sky.
Mm.
Also in Puno, Lake Titicaca is, if it's not the highest, one that is closest to the highest lakes in the world for the altitude. So I've never been. That's one of the places I would like to go.
Mm.
It's a big lake where indigenous people live in the islands inside the lake, and again, it's this place that you feel that is kind of almost that you can touch the sky from what I've seen in pictures.
I see. So often countries face a lot of misconceptions And if there are misconceptions about Peru, what can you say about that?
Um, so the thing that I encounter the most
Mm.
um, is you don't look Peruvian.
Oh, okay.
And I try to not take offense and just say,
How the Peruvian look like?
yeah, exactly. We come in different sizes and colors. uh, and but yeah, I think that the diversity of the country, there are, I don't know how many languages, but tens of languages, not just Spanish and Quechua. Um, and so I think that one of the things that I would like people to know is more about the diversity of the country.
Mm,
Um, and also kind of the association between um, drug trafficking or and crime. The truth is that right now there has been a lot of crime, and that's one of the things that resulted in the ousting of this previous president.
mm,
That apparently there are gangs that are extorting bus drivers. But I think that Lima, my city, is like every big city.
mm.
You're going to be in some places that are safer than others. You might be a victim of crime, but you basically need to have the same caution that you would have in other big cities of the world.
I see. As we know, living in United States uh, is a nation of many states, and state also have diverse communities.
Mhm.
And when you come to the Peruvian communities, what is your insight about when you come to the immigration situation right now?
Uh, um, it's devastating.
Mm,
The way that the United States government is treating immigrants, and not even immigrants, people that they think that they are immigrant. I think that the racial profiling is despicable. I think that they are picking up people because, and again, is they look right. They look Mexican. They assume that they are Mexican. They assume that they are undocumented. People have been taken from my neighborhood last week. So the neighborhood has been organizing to try to prevent, to have systems to let people know if immigration is in the area. Um, and I think that of course, I didn't, I knew about racism in the United States when I came, and I've seen it, um, but not to the level that is happening right now. Um, and um, so I feel, so when I told you about the things happening in Peru,
mm,
I told you I was in Lima. Uh, I had um, I was kind of protected by my privilege to a certain extent.
mm,
And here, again, being light skinned, I am not in as much danger as some people that I love. My students, I teach in a university that is almost 40% Hispanic.
mm,
Uh, and my students are in danger. Their relatives are in danger.
mm,
Uh, the family of my daughter's boyfriend is in danger.
mm,
Um, my neighbors. And I did not expect this to happen in the United States.
Mm,
I kind of living in Peru, I saw the United States as an imperialist country that had colonized other places and 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 kind of oppressed other places. But I thought that after the civil rights movement, there was some respect to the rule of law.
mm,
And and I don't know what's happening to the rule of law right now.
I see. Um, as a writer, often we get inspired with issues we deal with. Um, and you are a writer. You wrote few books about different topics. Hopefully, in the near future, we can you will accept my invitation to talk about your writings and things. But if you have to write a book right now, what advice can you give to Peru as a ways of prosperity? And what also can you say to the Peruvian community here in United States?
Take care of each other. Be truth to your beliefs. Um, I don't know. I don't think I have any wisdom to offer other than take care of your neighbors, take care of your community. Realize that whatever happens to one of us happens to all of us.
Mm. Take care of your neighbors, take care of your community. Professor Margarita Saona, again, thank you very much for accepting my invitation and joining me under the human rights tree and sharing your perspective about Peru and the Peruvian community in the United States of America. Again, I'm very grateful. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much for inviting me.
Yeah,
It's been a
it's
pleasure.
it was my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.